What is going on regarding Pokemon booster boxes right now in the state of the market? Well, it's interesting, right? Because we've seen the Sword and Shield do very well earlier on this year. A lot of them saw a real big boom. And then we started to see a lot of Scarlet and Violet era start trickling up. Stuff like Twilight Masquerade and Paldea Evolved. With talks of reprints on the horizon, especially when it comes to sets in the Scarlet and Violet era, we might see a lot of these booster boxes fall in price. But what is going on right now regarding both eras? We're also going to be taking a little look at Sun and Moon as well. But let's jump in and see what's been going on in the market right now regarding booster boxes. So we'll be taking a look at PokeJace today at all of the prices regarding these booster boxes. So we're starting things off with Sword and Shield base. So Sword and Shield base right now, we're looking around $300 on TCG Player, but $230 on eBay, which is actually quite interesting. If we go back over the last 6 months, we can see the difference in prices between TCG Player and over on eBay. Now, the interesting thing is TCG Player, like somewhat inflated price on TCG Player. We've seen them before when it comes to the single cards, but it's going to be interesting today regarding booster boxes and sealed product, because I tend to look at this and we tend to look at a lot of the single card prices, and we always see, especially over the last few months, TCG Player just being in a league of its own, whereas the rest of the market is much, much less. So that's kind of interesting as well. So yeah, we're looking at a Sword and Shield based booster box anywhere between that $230 to $300. And on TCG Player has been climbing ever so slightly over the last couple of months, but I would say maybe, last 2 months hasn't done too much, but over the last 6 months it has been climbing a little bit. Then we've got Rebel Clash, Rebel Trash. This one here, we're looking at just over $200 or so. We go over the last 6 months, and we can really see like the blue is eBay. So, it's been kind of up and down, around that $200 mark, whereas TCG Player has been pretty steady. But again, TCG Player sits above that market price, as it were, over on eBay. So that's actually quite interesting. You would think, like, if people sell on eBay, then it might be a little bit more inflated just to counteract, all of the, selling fees and stuff like that, but not so much. We've got Dancer Blaze, arguably one of the worst sets. I probably wouldn't invest in this, to be honest. I think there's so many other sets that are just better to spend your money. Even though this is more of the cheaper end, but it's still not really worth it. 126 on eBay, 150 on TCG Player. We go back after the last 6 months, and again we can see the TCG Player going above eBay. But eBay was above TCG Player, earlier on this year. But overall, it's been pretty steady. Dancer Blaze isn't really doing much, and I just think it's a really, really poor set if you're looking to spend your money. Vivid Voyage now. Vivid Voyage is a set which, to be honest, I, had quite a lot of. I did have a lot of seal product, and it's done literally nothing. So it is not a very good one indeed. $120 on eBay, $133 on TCG Player. We go back over the last 6 months. Similar to Dancer Blaze, doing absolutely nothing. I mean, even on eBay, it dropped as low as like 104. So, it did trickle up to around that 140 mark, but it's still not doing very well. So, again, not a great set to pick up. Moving on to Battle Styles now. Battle Styles is an interesting one. I still think Battle Styles is pretty good. It's a pretty cheap booster box, and I believe it's the cheapest in the Sword and Shield era. Over the last 6 months, we've seen it climb. We actually seen Battle Styles trickle up. Its eBay price has been going up pretty steady over the last 6 months, and then TCG Player still going above, but now they're pretty much level, but it was going above, around about $10 to $15 difference over on TCG Player for Battle Styles. I still think this is a really good one. I do, just because the price point is relatively cheap. Chill and Rain, Chill and Pain. This one's going to be an interesting one. So around $200. This one did shoot up, right? We did see the climb of Chill and Rain pretty quickly. Even over here in the UK, we saw it, climb very, very fast. But it's kind of just, stayed pretty steady. I mean, it went up to around that $200 mark. And as you can see from this chart, it hasn't really moved much. It stayed pretty much neck and neck on eBay and TCG Player, but hasn't really done anything. And, you could say, is now a good time? I mean, I think it will continue to climb. We're going to have a quick little look at some Sun and Moon at the end of the video. But, yeah, you're going to be seeing, Chill and Rain slowly trickle up, I think, as time moves on, but a lot more slower rather than that very fast boom that we saw a couple of months back. Next up, we got Evolving Skies. Of course, we've got to talk about Evolving Skies. We're looking around about $670 or so on eBay and TCG Player. And to be honest, this hasn't really done much. I mean, we go back over the past 6 months, and, we've seen it obviously climb very quickly. And it has done incredibly well. And you were sitting there at one point going, you know what, this could easily, reach $1,000. If it continues going at the pace in which it was going, it really looked like it was going to get that. I mean, even if we go back right back here, it was 467 in such a short space of time. This was in February. So between February and March, so just pretty much a month, it gained like $200. So it was crazy, right? We're looking at a month going $200. So it was on track really to reach insane heights. But then after that, it just slowly trickled up and then it started to drop. So now we've started to see Evolving Skies somewhat cool off a little bit. You could be like, is this could be its ceiling? I don't think so. I think it will reach $1,000 a box. Don't know when, because obviously it's cooled down a bit. I still think it's potentially a good pickup. It is obviously expensive, high risk, mainly because the entry point is just so high for Evolving Skies. I think you could do better with other sets, but I do feel like Evolving Skies right now isn't really moving much. So if you manage to pick one up a little bit cheaper, then you're doing okay. I've been seeing some people selling them for $550. I've even saw someone sold one on Facebook, really good condition, for $500 the other day. So, just keep an eye out for them. Fusion Strike, really interesting one, this one, because you look at 200 on eBay, 236 on TCG Player. Big difference. There's a big difference. Over the last 6 months, we saw, again, similar to like Chin and Rain and stuff like that, we saw the climb of it be really, really fast, and then it kind of just did nothing for ages. It is definitely a set that's plodding along as is, and yeah, big difference between TCG Player and eBay. eBay started to fall. We saw these prices of the booster boxes around that 230, 240, and now it's dipped to around 200. Over here in the UK, it's still available on the Pokemon Center website, so make sure to pick it up, because once it's gone, it's going to go up to probably around £200, I would expect. So yeah, definitely pick that one up. Brilliant Stars now. Brilliant Stars is a good one. I've had some somewhat talks of here in the UK that a lot of retailers are able to actually order in Brilliant Stars booster boxes. I don't know how much. I don't know if it's not necessarily a reprint or restock, but they've managed to get hold of something from elsewhere and managed to shift it. But they can get in some Brilliant Stars booster boxes. That'll be interesting if that is the case. 176, 181 on TCG Player. Pretty neck and neck. We go back over the last 6 months. This set hasn't really done much. I mean, Brilliant Stars was always quite expensive compared to the other Sword and Shield era. Even when it was in print, it was still sat around 140, especially here in the UK for the longest time. So not really much has happened, but it has trickled up slightly since it's no longer available on the Pokemon Center website. But I expect Brilliant Stars to be way more than what it currently is already. But we're starting to see the similar trend to a lot of the Sword and Shield now, is they are starting to cool off a bit. And, for the time being, before they might start climbing ever so slowly over time, but pretty steady growth there. Astral Radiance is another one which is going to be quite interesting. I think Astral Radiance is going to be a good one moving forward. We're looking at 155 on eBay, 166 on TCG Player. Again, TCG Player being above eBay, which seems to be a common trend we've been seeing. And even if you look on eBay over the last 6 months, it did actually trickle up to around about that 160, and it did actually drop to around 120, and then went back up to that 160 to be quite close to TCG Player. Whereas TCG Player was being quite, pretty steady, pretty consistent. But yeah, again, another set that hasn't really done much and is actually dropping just a little bit from as high as 180 down to that, 155, 166. So again, Astral Radiance, I believe, is a good one. I think it's going to be good, mainly because Training Gallery's got some good old arts in it as well, which would be very, very good. Lost Origin is an absolute powerhouse of a set, doing very well, I think. 207, 213, so pretty neck and neck. Over the last 6 months, we've just seen Lost Origin do very well. I mean, it is down ever so slightly from where it once was, but it did actually dip and then went back up. So it's doing quite well compared to some of the other Sword and Shield, which is just kind of plateaued and starting to drop off. Lost Origin's actually trickling back up to where it once was, which is very, very good. I mean, this has always been expensive in the UK because this was the first one to sell out. So you're looking around about 200 a box as well. So yeah, really good. I think it's going to be a top 3 booster box set in Sword and Shield, so definitely keep an eye out for Lost Origin. Silver Tempest now has been doing relatively well, even though it is the last set of the Sword and Shield era, so there's a lot more of it out there. It's no longer available on the Pokemon Center website over here. I'm not too sure in the US, but over here it is sold out. So we're looking at some interesting prices, 154 to 164. We go back over the last 6 months, and we've seen the climb of Silver Tempest. I think Silver Tempest is going to be a good one. I do. Training Gallery, sort of the Lugia Chase. I do think it will do relatively well. Between this and Astral Radiance, they're kind of neck and neck. I think Lost Origin is the best one, then Brilliant, then the other two. But still a relatively good one. Then we've got Scarlet and Violet booster boxes coming in. This is the base set. Not a fan of the base set. I do think it's a good base set, right? I do think it's one of the best modern era base sets ever released, but it's still not an overall great set in my opinion. So eBay is actually $122, whereas on TCG Player we're seeing a 95. So this is actually very different to what we saw with the Sword and Shield era, where eBay was less than TCG Player. So this one's actually quite interesting. We're going to the last 6 months, and we can see the climb actually on eBay for Scarlet and Violet era booster boxes. Over here in the UK, you can pick these up for around about £100. I mean, maybe if you don't have one, maybe just pick up one, but I wouldn't be spending my money personally on Scarlet and Violet base. If I was going to spend £100, I would probably buy a different set in Scarlet and Violet era, which we'll get to in a moment. But yeah, this one's not great. But yeah, eBay is a lot more than TCG Player, which is interesting. Moving on to Paldea Evolved. This one's doing really well. The fact is that it's on its way to 140 already is absolutely bonkers. And we can see the climb of Paldea Evolved. Now, this is expected to have a reprint later on this year. Whether or not it will is another matter. I do feel like if it does have a reprint, we could see booster boxes go back down to that 100 mark. I think if it doesn't get a reprint at all, not even just the end of this year, but ever again, then we could start seeing a Paldea Evolved climb pretty crazy, because it's already doing relatively well. It's been out over a year. It's going to be interesting to see, but I do expect a reprint of booster boxes coming later on this year. There's always seems to be a lot around. I mean, here in the UK, they're about 110, 115, like not crazy expensive. And I do think at 110, 115, even with a potential reprint coming, that's still a good price. Yeah, it is a good price. Obsidian Flames, a lot of people say this is the just straight up worst set, like even worse than base set, which is quite interesting. So $95 on eBay, 116 on TCG Play, which is relatively good. And if we go 6 months, then we can see it did drop and it's starting to rise again. So we've been seeing that with a lot of the Scarlet and Violet, which we'll see in a minute. But they did drop a little bit, but then now they're starting to rise with the potential chances of reprints later on this year. If Obsidian Flames gets reprinted, it's still going to be cheap. I mean, it already is cheap. 95 on eBay. Over here in the UK, you're looking at around about, again, 105, 110 a box for Obsidian Flames. Not the best set in my opinion. Paradox Rift. This is one of the cheapest sets to pick up. I think it's actually a good one. I do. I think from Paradox onwards, which we'll get to in the more recent ones, but Paradox onwards, I think is when Scarlet and Violet era really just turned the corner, really. You know, we had 151, then Paradox, and it really just made Scarlet and Violet, in my opinion, really, really good. With just back-to-back banger sets. And this is definitely one of them, right? $90 on eBay, 100 TCG Player. You can pick them up here in the UK for £100 a box. This is such a good set. You've got really good illustration rares, nice SIRs, not silly valuable cards, like the most expensive is like $50, $60, but still a solid set with some really, really good cards in it. So I do think this is going to be a good one. The pull rate started to get a little bit tougher when this came out, so that does help a lot regarding card values. So this is definitely going to be one to look out for. Temporal Forces. Temporal Forces, in my opinion, is one of the best sets in the Scarlet and Violet era for me. Right, that's my own opinion. I think it's one of the better ones. I think this is going to be a very good one in the future. It has incredible SIRs in it, beautiful artwork, chase cards that people want. It just kind of like is just the package, right? Pull rates are quite tough as well, but the booster boxes are cheap, right? You can pick them up for around $100. You can pick them up for £100 here. Definitely worth getting, even at 100. They did start to cut the print run of Temporal Forces onwards, so Temporal and Twilight Masquerade has smaller, less of them around, which will impact the sealed value as well. It means that they're most likely going to go up quicker, but it's interesting to see. Temporal Forces, I think, is going to be a very good one. At the moment, as far as booster box sets go, I would put it in my top 3. I think it's very, very good. And then finally, we have Twilight Masquerade. This is actually the best performing booster box in the Scarlet and Violet era. Yes, Paldea Evolved is more expensive, but Paldea Evolved has been out over a year and it's reached that 130 mark. Twilight Masquerade's been out, what, 2 months? And it's already like $123 on TCG Player. It's $100 on eBay. It is more inflated on TCG Player. Over here in the UK, you can pick these up for about 105, probably even a bit less than that, maybe even 100. So yeah, really, really good. Twilight Masquerade, I mean, me personally, there's not a huge amount of cards I like from the set. I kind of feel like the individual cards in the set aren't the best. I mean, Greninja's absolutely fantastic. The Eevee's fantastic. But the rest of the set is a bit lackluster. But because it has such a big chase card and the Eevee is a chase card as well. Just that Greninja alone and the tough pull rates, smaller print run, is just a perfect storm for this set. So you want to keep an eye out for Twilight Masquerade in the next 6 to 12 months, because I think this is going to be one of the best sets regarding booster boxes in the Scarlet and Violet era. And then just for a bit of fun, we're going to be looking at some Sun and Moon. We've got a team up here. We're looking at 2.4, 2.5k for team up. Over the last 6 months, team up has been climbing still. Yeah, we saw it reach 2,000 last year and we were like, whoa, this is crazy. And it is still going up. I mean, trying to find this in the UK is pretty much impossible. But yeah, it's just incredible. You know, this is what happens when a set is massively underprinted and it just goes absolutely bonkers. But yeah, $2,500 for a team up booster box. And then we're going to be looking at Cosmic Eclipse. I actually still have a Cosmic Eclipse booster box sealed. I'm not going to open it. It's going to stay in my collection. $900. That's crazy. I bought this for $400 about 2 years ago, which is crazy. And yeah, it's just mental. And it's still going up as well. I mean, it's been somewhat steady, whereas the eBay prices have gone above TCG Player. But overall, this is just the power, right? And we could see down the line the growth that Sword and Shield, you know, could get to. These Chilling Reign and Fusion Strike and stuff like that could get to. Same goes for Scarlet and Violet in the future as well. So definitely one to look out for. But yeah, Cosmic, ooh, crazy. So you have it, guys. That's what's been going on in the booster boxes right now in August. Sword and Shield is cooling off. A lot of them are dropping in price, whereas Scarlet and Violet, I mean, some of them are pretty much stale. You know, they've sat around that $100 mark, but then some have started to climb. You know, we started to see Scarlet and Violet based on eBay climb, Paldea Revolt, Twilight Masquerade. It's going to be interesting. I think Twilight Masquerade, Temporal Forces, Paradox Rift, and Paldea Revolt are by far the best, with Obsidian and base set kind of pretty lackluster. We do have Stellar Crown coming out in a month's time. That's going to be interesting to see how that one will perform. If it has tough pull rates and a smaller print run like Twilight Masquerade, then it's going to be another really, really good set. I think it's going to be good anyway, but it's going to be interesting to see how that one will perform in the future. If you made this far into the video, guys, and you've enjoyed it, make sure to smash the like button, make sure to subscribe for more Pokemon content, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What's been going on in the market right now, and is there anything that you're looking at picking up? Because there's some really good ones to get, and especially when it comes to Scarlet and Violet and Sword and Shield. You know, they're not going up right now, so now's a good time to pick some up if you don't have them in your collection or you want to invest more in certain sets. For me personally, I think Scarlet and Violet right now is a goodie. But that's it from me, guys, in today's video. If you want to watch more Pokemon content, make sure to click the video on the screen. And of course, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. As always, you guys are legends, and I'll see you in the next one.